we have Do Kwon from Terra speaking. So I'll loop you in.
All right, thanks for joining us today. I am a co-founder at Terra Money, and we are building a network of stablecoins best known for payments adoption in Asia. So today what I want to do is to talk about our payments first, what we're doing here, and then discuss some exciting updates to tackle new use cases and store value in addition to payments that we've been working on over the last 6 months. So to talk about the journey of Terraform Labs, which is the company that is building some of the core technologies around the Terra project, is that we like to think about we like to take a research-driven approach to ways in which we can sort of make foundational changes to the monetary layer. And what I mean here is the core motivation for starting the Terra project was that we took a look at a lot of the major fintech services out there in the market, like, for example, Kakao Pay in Korea, where I am currently situated, or PayPal in the US. So these apps are great UX wrappers around the existing services that banks already offer as a service, like, for example, being able to send money to your friend, or being able to buy vanilla goods in your local jurisdiction, but they are not able to offer any foundational changes in a way that banks are able to offer. So basically, they tackle use cases that banks find too annoying to do themselves. So in a sense, it's still very difficult to send money across borders, for instance. It's very difficult for payment apps to be interoperable. I think anybody who's gone to China and then tried to get their credit card to work with Alipay or WeChat Pay can definitely emphasize with this problem. And it's definitely not possible to structurally change ways in which transactions can happen without making sure that all the middlemen that are involved in the process have signed off on it. So what we believe is that we sort of look at money as a technology that can be innovated on, like many of you here. And I think, fundamentally changing things on a monetary layer and not just on the fintech user experience layer can bring unique value propositions to users in a way that simply changing the upper layers cannot. So, and without further ado to that, let me talk about some of our the two initiatives that we're doing at Terra today, which is number one, talking about how we're thinking about money as a technology in payments, and how we're thinking about money as a technology in the savings account or savings yield. So before we get there, let's talk about what Terra is and what are some of the core technologies that we're developing today. So Terra is a Tendermint and Cosmos SDK based blockchain that natively hosts several different stablecoins. So for example, we have a stablecoin that is pegged to the Korean won, which is the one that is most widely used for payments in sort of the payment apps that run on Terra today. We have something that is pegged to the IMF SDR, which is a basket of currencies around the USD, the Euro, GBP, and so on and so forth. We also have a stablecoin that is pegged to the Mongolian Tugur, which is also used in payments operations in that country. So sort of the uniqueness of how Terra is designed is that whereas a Tether and USDC were designed for more speculative use cases like exchange trading, we have several different stablecoins that are denominated in local currencies. And this is because a lot of these stablecoins were designed for retail use cases, with the idea being that for most retail users, they denominate stability in their local native currency instead of just the US dollar. So it's very important for us to have different stablecoins that are each pegged to the markets in which we thought we'd be active. Furthermore, there are lots of features of blockchain that are designed for commercial financial use cases, like payments and most notably FX. So most of our stable coins are swappable with each other at a 25 basis point spread. So which means that when you swap different currencies together for, let's say, cross-border payments use cases, or sending money from one user to another with the placement and the settlement currency being different, then in that case, you can do that at a very low fee, so 25 BP from the mid price without having to pay a further fee. So in terms of how we designed their stablecoin system, we squarely designed it in such a way that can maximize the benefit for end users in a retail setting. So first, let's talk about how these stablecoins are being used in payments. So last year, we launched a payment wallet in Korea called Chai. So Chai means difference in Korean. And the way that I thought about it when I came up with the name is that if you look at the traditional payment stack, there are lots of different middlemen that needs to be paid, thereby increasing the fee and delaying the settlement periods by which payments can happen. So the way that this was designed is that Chai directly hooks up to the Terra blockchain such that it's a fully licensed payments entity. So we're able to facilitate fiat on-ramps by being integrated with 14 of the 15 major banks in Korea. So users can top up into the Chai e-wallet using fiat if they so choose to, while at the same time the merchant is being settled in crypto. So what that allows us to do is that it allows us to preserve a lot of the user experience benefits and lower the learning curve for people that want to be onboarded into the Chai payment service. Whereas secondly, the implications for the merchant in the sense that we can cut out the middlemen like value-add networks, settlement networks, corresponding banks, and so on and so forth, we can offer lower fees and vastly, speed up the pace by which transactions can happen. So to put things in context, today in Korea, Chai's competitors charge anywhere between a 2.3 to 2.7% in order to process payment transactions. For Chai, we charge 1.2 to 1.3%. So what that means is that we've effectively halved the transaction fees that merchants have to pay. And then for a lot of the merchants that are operating at scale in razor-thin margins, such as e-commerce and convenience stores, having a 1% difference in fees makes a huge difference from these merchants' margin perspective. So this has allowed us to gain lots of traction across the country in a lot of the major merchants that operate here today. Secondly, whereas an average transaction, let's say in Korea, takes about 7 days to settle. So for example, if a user makes a payment on an e-wallet, generally the e-commerce platform would get paid 7 days later. And then I think in Japan, the settlement times go up to 10 days. So actually, if you look at how digital payments adoption has been happening in Asia, slow settlement periods has been one of the largest roadblocks in order to gain more and more adoption. So for example, if you're a cab driver and the credit card company waits several days for the proceeds of your 1 day to be settled, then in that case, accepting digital payments is prohibitively expensive for you because you need the money that you made today to be able to pay food for your family and buy fuel the next day. So in relative to that, the Chai wallet settles to the merchant every 6 seconds. So what that allows us to do is that we've vastly been able to cut down on the settlement times by which merchants and SMBs get settled, which from a working capital standpoint is fundamentally better than what they can get with a solution that doesn't leverage crypto or blockchain technology. So for those of you that have been following the Terra project, last year we announced during a conference, I think it was Korean Blockchain Week, that Korea, and in a way, we promised mass adoption in a big way. So I wanted to talk about some of our metrics and see where we're at in terms of that adoption, and then discuss maybe how we were able to get there. So today, Chai's early traction over the last year has been pretty explosive. So up to date, we processed about somewhere between 1.4 to 1.5 million active users that come onto the Chai platform to purchase things. Daily active users on an average base fluctuates anywhere between 50 to 80,000 users. And combined, what that has allowed us to do is to get to a $1 billion transaction volume run rate on an annualized basis. So within a year, today, we're the fastest growing fintech or payments entity in Korea. And I think large thanks to that is because we were able to gain merchant adoption very quickly due to the value propositions that are made possible by blockchain technology. Furthermore to this, we recently acquired another payments entity called iMport. So this entity was founded in 2011 and does about $3 billion USD in transaction volume today. So collectively, by the end of the year, payment entities in Korea as a group is going to do around $5 billion in transaction volume. And then collectively, what this would position us as the third largest payment group in the country after Naver Pay and Kakao Pay. So from that perspective, I think in terms of Korea, we are really starting to become widely usable and recognizable by most users in the country. In terms of our merchant adoption, we now transact across 23 merchants with around $23 billion collectively in gross merchandising volume. So when we first launched in Q2 of last year, the only merchant that we integrated with was Timon. So to give a little bit of context, Timon is a leading e-commerce merchant in Korea that was founded by my current co-founder, Daniel Shin. And it does about $3.5 billion to $4 billion in transaction volume on an annualized basis. So while Timon has been massively helpful in bootstrapping our initial adoption, we couldn't be here where we are today had we not closed a lot of the third-party merchants that are working with us currently. So just in the last month, we added many merchants that total $5 billion in GMV. So for example, some of these names are very well known locally. We Make Price, for instance, is also one of the leading e-commerce platforms in the country. It's second biggest only after Coupang. There's Nexon, which is one of the largest gaming companies in the world that, in terms of its game cash operations, does about $2 billion in volume. We added Kyobo, which is similar to Barnes & Noble of the United States. So it's the largest online or offline bookstore in the country. So lots of healthy merchant adoption, given the fact that we're able to offer fee structures and settlement structures in a way that traditional payment gateways simply cannot rival. Okay, so We Make Price Chai integration, that was very exciting. Luckily, we are becoming to be widely used in lots of different e-commerce players, but we have lots of other merchants in the pipeline that would allow us to double in GMV by the end of 2021. And then if you look at some of our growth trajectory, this is pretty natural. So some of the new players to get integrated with in the next couple of months is, for example, food delivery platform Yogio. So that's the local subsidiary of Rocket Internet and is one of the largest food delivery platforms in the country, doing about $2 billion in volume. And we think some of these merchant integrations would be very value additive to our growth. So this is something that we already announced, but we have the Chai card launch coming within the next month or so. So this is slated to launch beginning of July. The design is going to look a little bit different from this, but the idea is that Chai is going to have a top-up debit card by which users are able to top up into the card using KRT, which is a Korean won-pegged stablecoin, and pay at any merchant offline, without having to go through a cumbersome UX process of pulling out your phone and then showing a QR card. So whereas the Chai app has done most of its merchant integrations squarely focused on e-commerce, the Chai card is going to help us tap into the long tail merchants that mainly facilitate transactions offline. So through the Chai card, we think we'll be able to vastly expand the reach of Terra stablecoins and Chai payments without having to do direct merchant integrations one by one. So as I said, I think Chai is starting to close the retail loop in the country. We have services and merchants that run the gamut from, let's say, the nation's largest convenience store, which is CU, from dating, Vanilla Bridge, so similar to Korea's Tinder, to furniture and living, so O House, which is the largest interior design platform in the country. General e-commerce and Tmon and We Make Price. Webtoons, so that's sort of serialized fiction platforms and Tunix. Music, which is the largest music subscription service in the country. Also a neighbor subsidiary to duty free in Hong Kong in SSG duty free. So in terms of when we give a description that Korea is starting to run on Terra, we think we're making pretty good progress in terms of making this happen by capturing most of the online attention through the Chai app and sort of filling out our long tail through the Chai top-up debit card. So I think this is perhaps the most interesting from a network analysis standpoint, is that if you look at most of the blockchains today, they pay for network security in token inflation, which by no means or metrics is additional value creation because you dilute the existing set of stakeholders. What we've adopted to do from day one of launching the network is to subsidize transaction fees, subsidize network security in only transaction fees. So if you look at Luna as the asset, which is our staking token, it actually doesn't inflate in value, but it actually gets burned every time new Terra is minted. So from a network security standpoint, we are the third in total transaction fees only after Bitcoin or Ethereum. And then powered by our growth and user numbers, we think this trend is going to continue in terms of being able to create better network security by actual adoption and usage. So that's pretty much it in terms of what we're doing for payments. Now, I wanted to talk about something that we're really excited to have been building over the last 6 months. I think potentially this has a good chance of becoming something that is even bigger than payments. So we're pretty excited to announce this here today. So if you look at, so we've been looking at, you can create a savings account or savings yield on top of blockchains, especially during this time when the commercial bank interest rate on deposits is ranging somewhere between 0.5 to 0.7%. We felt that being able to create a stable savings rate is something that would be very important. But if you look at most of the DeFi protocols today, like Compound and Maker, we think these approaches were revolutionary in creating entirely decentralized money markets, but they're perhaps unsuitable as household savings products. And this is because given that Compound, for instance, is a vanilla money market, the interest rates that are being offered on stablecoins like USDC is fundamentally powered by a demand for leverage. So in the sense that it's being fueled by short-term speculative demand on other assets like Ether, BAT, and so on and so forth, whenever the market turns bearish in terms of these tokens, the interest rates on stablecoins collapse overnight. So this leads to a user experience where it's almost impossible for people to compute the cost of capital when they're choosing to deposit their funds into Compound. So we felt that you needed to create a savings account protocol that offers a APR that is higher than what commercial banks are able to offer at very low volatility. So we started to think about what are the sources of APR that you can tap into, so sort of sources of wealth that you can tap into in blockchain that is able to offer this sort of stable interest. And the only answer that we were able to come up with is the block reward. So every major blockchain has steady income that goes to fund network security, either in terms of the inflation or transaction fees. And in some sense, this is the greatest source of wealth generation that you can have in blockchain. So how Anchor works is pretty simple, is that if you have stablecoin deposits, Anchor facilitates a money market on top of staking derivatives on various positions that you can acquire on POS chains. So for example, if Anchor is integrated with Polkadot, with Cosmos, Algorand, Solana, then in that case, Anchor stablecoin deposits, a part of that would be used to drive demand to acquire POS assets across these various chains. And then the block rewards that are accruing to these various staking positions would be conferred to the user in the form of an interest rate. And given that there's, whereas commercial banking interest rates are below 1% today, and compared to that, blockchain inflation is at a rate that is much, much higher. Even if you were able to enter into hedge position for taking positions to fund an interest rate that is much more competitive than what you can find in the traditional way. So the goal is for Anchor to be launched in sort of a multi-chain setting where the proof of stake protocols that would be integrated would be Terra's Luna, Cosmos's Atom, Algorand, Tezos, Polkadot, and so on and so forth. So it would draw an interest rate and the cost of capital from the entire world of POS. So the end result of this would be is that Anchor would be the reference interest rate or the reference cost of capital that people can tap into. And in some sense, that would allow Anchor to become something that is akin to a federal funds rate of all of blockchain. And we're immensely excited by this idea. So this is just a projection, given that the entire space of proof of stake, even without Ethereum transitioning to 2.0, is somewhere between, I think, $12 to $16 billion. Without threatening network security, we think we can scale this to about $2 billion while offering very competitive and stable APR. This will obviously scale in proportion to how much proof of stake as an asset class grows over the next few years. So as a way to do this, we're starting to launch Terra, not just on the Terra Mainnet, but across lots of different POS blockchains. So recently we announced a partnership with Solana, where Terra stablecoins will be offered via a bridge called Warp on the Solana blockchain. And we have many of these integrations coming up over the next few months. So this would allow Terra to be, it's multiple stablecoins to be offered across the entire universe of POS blockchains. Yeah, so through Chai and the payments operations that are being built on Terra, we think we're creating a valuable infrastructure by which blockchain can touch the lives of millions of users. We are excited to create a reference interest rate that can create uncorrelated sources of income through Anchor across by tapping into the entire universe of proof of stake blockchains. And I think through this, by creating these primitives that are fundamentally better than what traditional finance is able to offer, we think we can set money free. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, yeah, thanks for the presentation, and really appreciate the discussion on the go. So on that point, question from the audience, I guess kind of who are you competing against? Is it other stable coins, other cryptocurrencies? Is it just traditional finance? And then I think another thing I'd want to add in there is how do you guys think about, I guess, somewhat similar projects like CeeLo, and then also kind of the elephant in the room, Libra?
Yeah. So in terms of our stablecoins, we don't really tap into speculative use cases. So we don't really tap into the exchanges and price arbitrage, that sort of vector. So I don't think we're in competition with the likes of Tether or USDC and so on and so forth. With respect to the new assets that are coming out, I think we stand to gain so much more by growing the overall pie by which regulators and everyday users can look at stablecoins. So I think in the sense that the likes of CeeLo and Libra help to grow that understanding and grow that usership, I think we're 100% aligned in terms of how we want to take this forward. Generally, as a philosophy, I think competition only occurs when we're fighting for market share. And quite honestly, I think all of Terra, CeeLo, Libra are either just at concept stage or are still very small. So I think the goal is to grow the market together rather than compete for market share, which doesn't exist.
Makes sense. Another question from the audience, initial APR projections for Anchor.
Yeah, so staking returns are a little bit volatile, but we're looking at around 16 to 17%. staking returns for Luna, I think on an average basis. And this is, coming from a little bit from my information asymmetry. But even discluding the hedging costs, we're looking at somewhere between 8 to 9% in terms of APR. And I think the biggest selling point here is that this would be not volatile. So it would be easy to calculate. It would resemble more of a low volatility or fixed income product than it would just a DeFi product.
Gotcha. And another question from the audience on Anchor. So it says, how does the mechanism work? Is it it's a proof of stake chain that can use proof of stake rewards from other chains to offer rates their stakers and users? So that's kind of the question.
Yeah, so in terms of the mechanism, we create a liquid staking derivative that mirrors staking positions across all the different POS blockchains. So for example, there would be BAtom, which reflects a staked and liquid staking position on the Cosmos blockchain. There would be BLuna for Terra and BDOT for Polkadot and so on and so forth. So basically the idea would be that you would have liquid assets that bear staking returns. And what we do is that we create a compound-like money market on top of this, where you are able to lock up these liquid staking derivatives to borrow stablecoins. So from that standpoint, like given that these liquid staking derivatives keep bearing interest in the form of staking rewards, like we can direct that flow to reward the buyer or the lender in order to create stable interest rates on both sides. So basically, like the APR is being funded by block rewards that are accruing to the collateral that are locked up in CDPs.
Gotcha. All right. Well, since we're running up into the other session, but thank you for the great presentation. And where can everyone check out Terra and learn more about the project?
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for listening.